The album that made Janet Jackson bigger than her own brother almost didn't happen because she said no to everyone who was supposed to be in charge of her career. Her manager wanted her to go fully sexual. Her label wanted a tell-all record about her own family's scandals. Janet Jackson refused both. Instead, she walked into the studio and made an album about racism, poverty, and a country falling apart, a bet nobody around her believed in. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how that gamble turned Janet Jackson into the only artist in music history, including Michael Jackson himself, to score 7 top 5 hits from a single album. This is the unbelievable story of how one album that almost destroyed her career turned her into a pop legend. To understand how big the risk really was, you have to understand exactly what she was walking away from. By 1989, Janet Jackson didn't need to take risks. Her album Control had already reinvented her, turned her from the kid sister in a famous family into an artist with her own name on the marquee, her own sound, and a run of hit singles to prove it wasn't a fluke. The obvious move was simple: make Control again. Same sound, same energy, guaranteed hits. Nobody would have blinked if she'd played it safe. That's not what happened. Her manager at the time, John McClain, wanted the follow-up to push further, more overtly sexual material, leaning into image over message. Janet pushed back on that direction directly. At almost the exact same time, executives at her label had a completely different idea. They wanted an album called Scandal, built around exposing the Jackson family's private drama for public consumption. Janet actually sat down and wrote one track aimed directly at her father, called You Need Me. Then she made a decision that surprised almost everyone in that room. She wasn't willing to build an entire album out of her family's pain, just to satisfy a label's appetite for a story. Two powerful people in her career, pulling her in two very different directions. Sex appeal on one side, family scandal on the other, and she rejected both of them completely. What she chose to make instead was the one thing nobody in that industry thought could sell. Janet went back to the same partnership that had built Control, producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and the three of them disappeared into Flight Time Studios in Minneapolis for months, working largely in seclusion from late 1988 through the spring of 1989. The subject matter this time wasn't romance. It was racism, poverty, substance abuse. A country, in her words, that needed healing. The production itself matched the ambition of the concept. For the album's title track, Jam and Lewis built the beat around a sample pulled from Sly and the Family Stone, grounding a record about a divided country in the sound of one of soul music's most political bands. Nothing about this album was accidental. Nobody was asking a 23-year-old pop star, fresh off her commercial breakthrough, to make a concept album about social injustice. That wasn't the assignment. That was Janet overriding the assignment entirely, betting her own instincts were sharper than her managers and her labels combined. And the sound she and her producers built to carry that message would end up changing what a music video could even look like. When it came time to shoot the video for the album's title track, Rhythm Nation, Janet worked with choreographers Anthony Thomas and Terry Bixler to build something that had never been on MTV before. A militant, tightly synchronized dance style, shot entirely in black and white, set in a dystopian factory. No color, no glamour, no romance, just discipline, precision, and a message. It was filmed as part of a full half-hour short film, the Rhythm Nation 1814 film, shot over 20 days at real locations in Los Angeles and Pasadena, including the Bradbury Building. That choreography didn't just become iconic. Critics and dance historians credit it with setting the visual template that hundreds of pop videos in the 1990s and 2000s would go on to copy. Synchronized formations, military-inspired uniforms, and monochrome used as storytelling rather than style. But none of that mattered yet, because the album still had to actually sell, and nobody, including her own label, was certain a protest record could. Rhythm Nation 1814 was released in September 1989. The lead single, Miss You Much, hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for a month. Then came the title track, Rhythm Nation, #2, proof that a protest anthem with none of the usual romantic hooks could still be a massive commercial hit. Then Escapade, another number 1. Then All Right, peaking at 4. Then Come Back to Me, hitting number 2. Then Black Cat, a song Janet wrote entirely on her own, hit number 1. And finally, Love Will Never Do Without You, closed out the album's run with a 4th number 1. 7 singles, every single one landed in the top 5. No album before it, and no album since, has ever done that. Not Thriller, not Born in the USA, just this one, built on a concept nobody thought would work commercially. And it did something else no album had ever done. It produced number 1 hits in 3 separate calendar years: 1989, 1990, and 1991. That record wouldn't be matched by anyone for more than 30 years, until The Weeknd's After Hours in 2021. If a story like this is worth your time, hit subscribe now, because we're about to get to the part where the entire music industry had to admit they were wrong about her. Because the album itself was about to become the biggest selling record of the year, in the middle of a genre nobody expected her to lead. Janet took the album on the road with the Rhythm Nation World Tour, her first ever headlining tour, and a 9-month, 5-leg trek across the United States, Canada, Japan, and multiple European countries. Every single show opened with Control and closed with Rhythm Nation, bookending each night with the song that had once been the riskiest bet of her career, now positioned as the emotional finale. It became a genuine phenomenon. In Salt Lake City, tickets sold out in just over an hour, setting a new sellout record for the venue. Across the US leg alone, the tour grossed over $28 million and drew more than 2 million attendees, putting her, at the time, in direct comparison with the touring power of Prince and her own brother Michael. The album itself spent 4 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard 200 and became the best-selling album in the United States for all of 1990. And the industry that had quietly doubted her was about to hand her its highest honors. At the 1990 Grammy Awards, the Rhythm Nation long-form video won Best Long-Form Music Video. The choreography itself, Janet's and Anthony Thomas's, won Best Choreography at the MTV Video Music Awards that same year, alongside a nomination for Best Dance Video. And then MTV gave her something reserved for artists who'd fundamentally changed the culture: the Video Vanguard Award. Rolling Stone would later include Rhythm Nation 1814 on its list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. She had taken the riskiest possible move at the height of her career, and every major institution in music eventually validated it. But the most powerful proof that this album mattered didn't come in 1990. It came 37 years later. On May 8, 2026, Janet Jackson made one of her rare public appearances to accept Rhythm Nation 1814's induction into the Grammy Hall of Fame. And what she said next is exactly why this album still matters more than 3 decades later. Introduced by Jimmy Jam himself, she walked onto the stage at the Beverly Hilton to a standing ovation before she'd even said a word. Her message wasn't nostalgia. It was a direct statement.
Tonight, though I don't see Rhythm Nation as a phenomenon that lives in the past, I believe it's alive and well in 2026.
Janet Jackson had every reason to play it safe in 1989. She had just proven herself. She could have made Control again and guaranteed the hits. Instead, she rejected her manager's vision, rejected her label's vision, and built an album about the world's problems that nobody was confident would sell. It didn't just sell. It rewrote the record books. 7 top 5 singles, number 1 hits across 3 separate years, an achievement neither her brother nor anyone else in pop history has matched. Sometimes the album nobody believes in is the one that ends up defining a legacy. Where were you when you first heard Rhythm Nation? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe, because next time, we're telling the story of the song that turned Madonna's biggest gamble into her own defining moment. And if you haven't already, go check out our countdown of the best-selling pop songs of the entire 1980s.